Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing with another video. This is Friday, which would be about racing, and I've got some information about that, but I'll save that to the end. I'll show you one little tech thing because I did get some parts in, so I thought maybe I'd give you some information about rocker arms, shaft rockers in general. I've done another video, but not like this one. I wanted to show you some other stuff because I know this has come up before, at least in one of the forums, and I thought, well, why not just do a little video about it while I'm doing my little racing thing, because really not much is happening in racing. It's still pretty hot here, and I have the headers here, and I'll show you that part later on, and we'll talk about it, but I haven't got to do any racing, but I hopefully will soon. But anyway, let's kind of get to today. I'll give you a little background. I've ordered several set of shaft rockers. I've got one set ordered from Crowder, which they're been in order since June. I've also got 4 sets in order from T&D, but they're back ordered. Well, I ordered one of those in June too. So I would love to be able to show you a comparison, but I don't have one of the T&D or Crowder in stock, even though they're ordered. But what I do have are these. These are from Jesel, and I'll show you. And I have to say, Jesel's rockers are probably the more expensive shaft rockers you could buy. However, you can get them by far quicker than you can the others. So if you're looking for speed, Jesel for sure will get you quicker. Anyway, let's get started. So I got them kind of in an order here, how they are, and I'll give you information more about the shaft rockers themselves. So this first one here, this is their Sportsman line. This is the more economical ones that they sell, and this is a profiler head, and I've got one kind of set up on there. Anyway, these are their Sportsman ones. These are actually what I use in the S10. These run around $13.50 retail for a set, so they're not cheap, but $13.50 for their Sportsman ones. And they have rocker ratios from this is for small block Chevy, but they have them for LS's and small block Fords and several others as well, big block Chevys as well. But anyway, I'm just going to talk about small block Chevys today, but they have different things. But I'm going to show you as much information as I can. Anyway, they're $13.50 or so for the small block Chevy stuff. I'm sure LS's and big block Chevys are a bit more expensive, but LS's are probably about the same cost as these. But anyway, what this one is, this is a 1:5 ratio, both on intake and exhaust, but I'm going to show you this. This one is the intake rocker, and if you get the Sportsman series from Jesel, you can actually order it with an extra, it's got an O at the end, and that stands for offset. And the standard offset is a 250 offset, which would look just like this one. This is the exhaust rocker, which has an offset. But they've got one that looks just like this, same body width and everything, but it'd be over here on the intake side, and it's a 250 offset. And that works with, most of your stuff just fine. However, they offer this one as a 300 offset, and allows you to run a 3/8 push rod. And this is the ones like I have on my S10. Now, in case you're wondering what's that mean, I'll show you in just a second. But if you ever wondering about the rockers themselves, on the bottom, this 5.0 will tell you the rocker ratio, which is 1.50. Now, here's what I mean by the offset. So I got this set up, and someone had posted about Jesel Sportsman shaft rockers on the profiler small block Chevy heads, because profilers are a little bit weird for their heads. Anyway, I put the stand on just because I was curious, and that bolt will go through. This one goes through, but the one that will not go through, and this kind of shocked me, it's pretty close, is this hole here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you some more stuff about these shaft rockers. Hopefully I don't leave anything out. These have, on Jesel's, are like this, and I think T&D's might be the same way. These have these torque heads that go in here, and the reason why they have to have them is because your rocker, literally, as you can tell, sits over the top. So you can't have a nut sticking up because it would hit the bottom of the rocker body. But anyway, they're notched here because this same rocker bar also works for the Dart heads and the Brodix ones, anything besides the 40/60 spacing. But for whatever reason, and I'm going to go ahead and take care of this for the customer before he gets it. As you can tell, it's so close to clearing. It looks like it needs maybe 50 thousandths more that way grinding, and it will clear. So I'm going to go ahead and grind this so that one get through, because I could put a bolt through every one of the other stands, but just not into that one. So far that's the only problem I found. Now, if you're wondering about rock arm alignment, if we look at it, they sit almost perfect over, I'll do it like this, over the valve. See, by the way, they can shift a little bit. Let me do it this way. Sorry guys for the camera movement. So pretty close. All right, that one's almost dead center. This one looks off because of the camera view, but it's pretty centered. And another way, by the way, I should point that out. If you ever get shaft rockers, you should always check both, because it's important to make sure that both are lining up. So that's what we do real quick. We'll just screw one in, and you can see what I mean. Over the center, over the center. That's what you want to check. Now here's what I meant by the offset. So I've got both on there. For the small block Chevy, your push rod would come through here. You could tell with the offset, it moves the push rod over and it's out of the way here. Since it gets more over this way, you could put a bigger push rod in. Now there is some disadvantage in that it has a larger angle on the push rod, because instead of being straight up and down, it kicks this way some. Now, that it isn't always ideal, but if you can run a bigger push rod, sometimes it can overcome that deficiency. Okay. Now, one thing I will say, if you're trying to set these up, and Jesel doesn't include it, the Sportsman kit comes with one other thing you need to have, and that's this. Okay. You're like, what is this? Right there is your head bolt hole. And if you notice, the stand right there is covering up the hole. If you tried using a regular head bolt, it won't go through. So in their kits, they supply this one. And they're only for this hole, this hole, this hole, and this hole. So only 4 for each one. And these take their place. This is only on their Sportsman. On their racing ones, they actually notch out here, and there's cut out, and they shift the stand back, so it gives a longer pivot. And so you don't have to worry about that. It's only on their Sportsman that you'll have this. Now, they also include shims, because some people get really scared because they don't understand what to do with shaft rockers. I will go ahead and tell you, if you ever run shaft rockers, you'll never go back to stud mount, because it's so much better and easier to use. Granted, it costs more. No doubt about that. It costs more. But man, it's so easy to set up. But the one thing is, they don't include the tool to set it up. These are the tools you'll need. And you're like, what is this for? Let me take off this rocker super quick. This you put here. And you can get away with not having that, but you'll need the next piece. That piece of aluminum here is the same as the diameter of the shaft. This tool, what it does is it slides over the valve and sits on top of that, like so. If it sits flush, you're good, unless you've got a certain amount of lift. Then there's another one where you can want it 50,000 above. I think that's if you have less than 600 lift, and you want it 50,000 down if you have more than 700 lift. That's how you set up the Jesel ones. Now, if you get T&D, they have this handy dandy gadget. Okay, and the way that one works is you actually have to disassemble their shaft. So you have to take off the C-clip, pull out the shaft, and you'll set it here just like this, but I got it backwards. You'll take this and you'll try to get it where it lines up with the valve, where it touches there and there. And that's how you set theirs up. And that's supposed to be good for a certain amount of lift, in this case 750. So anyway, that's kind of some of the setup things for it. This is not a good way to show you how to set it up. Maybe I'll do a different video, just to show you how to set them up. But I wanted to show you that. Now the race version, so this is our Sportsman ones, but if you get the race version, you can get this. The race versions have way more options. So for instance, the most rocker ratio you can go on the Sportsman is at 1.7. And the most offset, that's how far over you move, is 300. This is for the 10XRI heads I have. I'm porting a set for a customer. These actually beat the heads coming in, but these are their race series. Now they're extremely expensive compared to these. So these run, like I said, about $13.50. These run $17.50. So they're really expensive. They have a lightning hole here. That's the big thing. And their rocker ratios, it depends on how much they can get in there. But I know for sure you can run a 1:9 ratio, and this has a 600 offset. So that's a 300, that's a 600. Now you might say, why in the world do you have such a large offset? Well, that's not even the biggest. Ta-da! This one is the next version up. This is their Mohawk lightning option. It has a beam and it's lightened this way. So the rocker actually weighs less than these. That's one. But this one has a 750 offset. To my knowledge, this is the most offset that you can get with a 1:9 ratio, okay, for this rocker. Now these are wide bodies, as you could tell, they're much wider. Now, the reason for the so much offset is this. This head is standard, like it is, but on some of my racier heads, it's all the way out here, so the port's much wider, because I prefer width versus height. So it's wider, so I can get a larger cross-sectional area without having to raise the port up so much. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say raise it up. I try to take it as high here as I can, but usually to get cross-sectional area, people drop it down. And I prefer not to drop it down, but instead make it wider and get the same area. Now, of course, that's not always the case in some situations. So because of that, I run a larger offset. Now, these will be, if you tried running this 750 offset with a standard rocker or standard lifter, you'd have a humongous pushrod angle. So these have a 180 offset. And I've run these before and they work very well. So that's good. Now there's one other difference between these two. So both these are race versions, very expensive. By the way, this one's more expensive than this. So this was like $17.50. This one has the Mohawk option that's like almost brings it up, I think, to $1,800. So it's pretty expensive. But here's something else. The Sportsmen have cup adjusters. This is where your push rod would go. And that most of you've notice have ball ends on your push rods and they go there. This one, the race version, also has a ball end. This one is not. Sorry, that one's cup. Cup, sorry. This is the ball end. I said it wrong, my bad. Sportsman ones have cup. The race series usually has cups, but you can order them. This is an option. This is the ball adjuster. This is different because this is usually how the end of your push rod looks. I ordered it this way on the adjuster because it actually makes the rocker stronger. Instead of having a cup like this adjust nut is weaker. So if you do it like this with the ball and then you get a cupped end on the push rod, it's actually stronger. So that's the reason for those. That's another option that's available. But anyway, that's some information about the rockers themselves, and I wanted to show you that. So for those that are wondering about, well, do these profiler heads, will this Jesel Sportsman shaft rocker setup fit it? Yeah, but it turns out, and it could just be me getting one weird batch, but it turns out I'm either gonna have to grind that hole or this one. It's only two end ones, because what's weird is that all the rest go in perfectly fine. And that's usually not the case. Usually if this one's good, this one won't be. So it's like they've shifted it one way or another, usually on shaft rocker systems I've seen where they don't fit. It's usually like half of them fit and half won't. This case, all but the end two, so almost like it's off slightly. Either the head was machined slightly off or the rocker bar. Either way, this is pretty easy fix, just a little bit of time with the die grinder and it's fine. This outer edge here, where it sits, there's more than enough room for me to get enough clearance there, so I should be fine. So I'll do this before the customer sees it and out the door it goes. But anyway, I wanted to show you that and tell you a little bit about shaft rockers. If you have questions about shaft rockers or something else you want to talk about with those, put them in the comments and I'll try to share that information, okay? So I'll put those in other videos, just not this one. And hopefully by that time, the T&D will be here and I can compare the Jesel to T&D and maybe even the Crower. So anyway, but let's go on to what's going on with the truck and racing stuff. And this will be really short because I've got one more bonus nugget of knowledge, actual tech thing for you at the very end. Okay, so hold on. Time to talk about the truck and go from there. The truck is making progress and it hopefully will be out running soon enough. This passenger side header is on and they are wrapped. And let me explain. I had these Jet Hot coated, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Jet Hot has three different types of coating. You have your regular one, which is the one most people see, which is what the Camaro has, that kind of, and it makes it nice and shiny and silver. That's the most common one. They're only good to like, I think 1500 degrees or 1200 degrees. But in my experience, typically those that will dull. So even though they're bright and shiny, typically right here where the most heat is, they'll start dulling. I didn't get that. They have the next step up they have is this one, which is their off-road series. It's good at 2,000 degrees. And then they've got another one that's good at 2,500 degrees. Now, somebody said you cannot wrap jet hot coatings. That's true of the first coating, the cheaper one, which runs like $450 or whatever, the silver looking one, you can't wrap it. This 2,000 coating and the 2,500 one, you can. And by the way, it's rough. And it's gunmetal gray. They don't have a shiny silver, at least I didn't think they did. And again, the reason for the wrapping is because there will be a supercharger sitting over here on this side, and I don't want the header heat being sucked in by the supercharger. So the headers itself, this one was kind of a booger to put in because I did, and I hate to do it, but I did have to dent just slightly here for the water line, but not real bad. Other than that, this one's in. I'll warn you, the hardest part of this entire thing was not the headers. The starter. Got the starter in fine, but I made the dumb mistake. And if you ever do this, okay, for the race car guys, what you need to do is you need to put a wire on your starter when it's not on the engine and have a long extension to it and have like a detachable connection, electrical connection there. Because me, being the dummy, I didn't do that. So I had to run my wire all the way through there and somehow magically connect it when it's bolted on. I wasted almost 45 minutes trying to get one bolt in for the starter switch. That little wire that on the side of the solenoid. That's almost impossible because there's so much stuff crammed in here, and it was an Allen head. Oh, I should have made a piece of wire that extended out from it with a separation joint. That would have saved me so much time. Next time I'll do that. There's your lesson for you. There was this funny TikTok video, and yes, I'm on TikTok, but I never post anything. I just watch people do funny stuff. I know it makes me sound weird because TikTok's for young people, but it's funny. I mean, there's political stuff on there, and what you do is you take your thumb and you just scroll up. But the funny stuff, anyway, there was this girl on there and she was working on a car, and she's like, I don't know why you guys like doing this. I've been wasting 45 minutes on one bolt. And I was like, yes, I understand. But anyway, that header's in. The other headers are not quite there yet. They're all wrapped. I just got to put them in. Once they're put in, I've got to get an extension and put the O2 sensor on. So that's why the truck's not finished. The biggest thing is I just don't have time. It's taken forever for me to get any time to do anything. But I promised you one more nugget of knowledge, so let me show you. Zach from ZSR, he does a lot of Ford stuff. He sent me a set of heads to have chamber softened, and they came back, and I will try to attach a picture to this video. Hopefully I don't forget. And so you can see what's been done with it. And I warned him, I was like, it's going to seal because it did leave a slight ledge above the 45 because of the seat angle where the top cut was, but just ever so slight. So I know it's going to seal up. That's not a problem. That's after the chambers were softened. However, I was like, I don't think it's going to flow that good. You sure you don't want me to redo the valve job and see if it'll help? And he goes, no, it should be fine. And I was like, well, let me flow it if you don't mind. He goes, sure. So I'm going to show you the results. These are a trick flow. They're out of the box besides the chamber being softened. And they're a trick flow 240 cc CNC ported head. Really nice Ford head. And I just had valves here laying around, so it's not, if you saw me flow ones before, it's not the same valves I used here. So anyway, let's look at it. This is the stock flow. That's the intake and that's the exhaust. I only flowed it to 800 because my valve wasn't long enough to go further. This is stock, nothing else done. This is with the chamber CNC softened because it's got a cone that ridges in. You can see hopefully if I attach the picture. And there's those numbers. Here are the difference. So you can tell if it gained or lost. I was expecting a huge loss. And what I didn't expect was a gain right here at 5 of almost 5 CFM. And for the most part, it was only like 1 or 2 CFM difference on the intake. Exhaust side now, yeah, it did lose some. 14 there, 10 there. But on the intake, it really didn't change it, which was really weird because the exhaust side I figured would be less affected because the top cut is so far from where the chamber is to deck. So I thought that probably won't have a difference at all. But this, you took out one of the angles. Turns out, not at all. And this is the reason why we test. Anyway, if you need Ford stuff, contact these guys. Zach at ZSR Racing, great guy. He does a ton of Ford stuff, and his stuff looks really professional. Anyway, thanks for sticking around for this video. On Sunday, for those that made it through this long video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that Cadillac head. And you're like, oh, I don't want to see more Cadillac stuff. Can't you go to anything else? Yes, I'm using the Cadillac head, but I'm doing something different with it that will apply to other heads. I'm going to take some modeling clay. I'm going to make the vane. And I'm going to put the vane in different positions to see what it does to flow, just because I wanted to see as far as research. And you'll get to see the results. We'll see if having one at, say, the 6 o'clock position versus the 7 or 5 position makes a difference, and go from there. Anyway, look for that on Sunday. Hopefully I can get it done in that small amount of time from now and then. But thanks for watching, and take care.